Today on TOKKANTE, we are doing the third and last installment of our three-part IWC hands-on series with the brand new IWC Pilot 43. So if you're watching this one and you've watched the other two, thank you for sticking with me. And if you haven't, then you have two other installments to watch about the automatic Spitfire and the Mark 18. So in this one, once again, I'll be looking first at the case and the wearing experience, and then the dial, then the bracelet, then the movement. And then at the end, I'll share with you some nuggets of information that IWC shared with me about maybe the future of the Pilot collection, as well as some new models that will be coming out soon. So if that's what you're interested in, you can jump to that section directly in the timestamps below. Hi everyone and welcome, I'm Ben. So let's jump right into it. First, we'll look at the case and the wearing experience. I have to say, when I went to the IWC boutique, I was not really considering the Big Pilot 43. I still wanted to take a look at it because I know it's the brand new toy from IWC, but I told the sales associate, just show it to me because I want to see what it looks like. But I'm only considering the automatic Spitfire and the Mark 18 because I'm looking for a daily driver. So when it took them out and I put it on my wrist, I have to say that was a big surprise, because it wore a lot better than it looks like on paper. Yes, it's a big and thick watch, but not overly. So the dimensions, or the official dimensions that I got from the Big Pilot magazine that they gave to me, it is 43mm in diameter by 13.6mm thick by 52.8 lug to lug. I know there are different dimensions floating around from 51 to 53, but the exact dimensions from IWC is 52.8. However, don't be scared by the lug-to-lug dimensions, because I think the lugs have been redesigned and they're actually curved down better than on the Mark 18 or the Spitfire, so that when I had it on my wrist, and my wrist is 6.75 inches or 17 centimeters in diameter, it actually wore pretty well. I mean, yes, it's still a big and thick watch, but when you look at the Flieger style Pilot watches, that's the point, right? They are big watches. So I think overall, I don't think this could be a daily wearer, because it's still a big watch at the end of the day. But I thought, I can pull it off. There is no way that I could pull off the Big Pilot 46. That would just look comical on me. But this one, I think, once in a while, I could wear it. Also, it is 13.6, which is quite thick, but it's about the same thickness as a Omega Seamaster 300M. So it's not overly thick. And then 43, given that you don't really have a bezel, it looks big, but I think they really redesigned the watch in such a way that it is really a lot more wearable than the 46. There is a very good video from Watchfinder where they explain how they redesigned the 46 and the 43, and they didn't just shrink down the 46. So go watch it, because it's very well explained, and I think it does make sense. Once you put it on your wrist, it wears much better. Also, this one is finally 100-meter water resistance. So the other two were 60, this one is 100, even though it also has a see-through case back, so you can see the manufacturer movement, which we will talk about in the next section. So overall, big surprise for me. I was not going to consider this one at all, just wanted to take a look at it, but after putting it on my wrist, I thought, actually, this could be in the running. But again, probably not for a daily wearer. Now, looking at the crown, we have a redesigned crown this time, still based on the diamond-shaped design from the Big Pilot 46, but it has been redesigned somehow to be less, protruding in a way, and it doesn't dig into the back of your hand. And it's true, when I was wearing it, I didn't even feel it. So it's not nice to have such a big crown. It's a screw-down crown, and when you unscrew it and then you go and wind the watch, it's very easy to do. And one thing to note is that you actually wind this watch counterclockwise. I've never seen a watch where you wind it counterclockwise, and it's also very clicky, very kind of loud. It reminds me of winding a pocket watch movement, and it gives you a sound like at the opening intro of my videos, So maybe it is common to all the 8000 series movements from IWC. I don't know, I've never tried another one, but this one is very clicky. So in a way, it reminds me of the pocket watch movement that was in the original Flieger of 1940. I think it was caliber 52, and it was a pocket watch movement. So something interesting. I think it's quite satisfying actually to wind this watch. Now let's talk about the dials, because we have two versions again. We have the black version, which is very faithful to the original, and then we have a blue version, which is not Le Petit Prince. So yes, it's blue, yes, it's the exact same shade of blue, but no, it's not Le Petit Prince, and we'll talk about that in the last section. So if we take the black one, for example, I think it's very faithful to the original 1940 55mm Flieger that was designed by IWC for the Luftwaffe pilot. There are just a few points that are not exactly the same, mainly the font. So the font, they're using the same modern rounded font that they use in the Mark 18, and they are not using the original font that you will find on the Flieger. And also the hands are not blued. On the black dial version, there will be kind of brushed steel. I'm guessing it's steel, but it's very nice, but it's not blued. And then on the blue version dial, it will be polished hands, I think. So besides that, it's actually very faithful. The dial design is the same. They've done a very, very good job. And the point that I absolutely love is that it's a no date. I love no date dials. I've said that before in the automatic Spitfire. I wish it had no date. The Mark 18 has the date and it's in the wrong place. This one has no date, so it's perfect. In terms of the dial, really, I think they've done a good job. Personally, I would go for the black dial because I think it's more in the spirit of that Flieger pilot from the 40s. It should be very legible, and it works very well, and you know the text is very minimum, just IWC and automatic, so it works very well. On the other hand, the blue one, you know, they're using that sunburst dial just like on Le Petit Prince, so it's a lot dressier, it's a lot you know, shinier, blingier, whatever you want to call it. It's also less legible in the light, so just a personal choice, I will go with the black one. But the dial, I think, is very simple, it's very clean, very legible, very Flieger style. There is no mismatch of different inspirations here. You don't have things from the Mark series mixed with the Flieger. The triangle with the two dots is from the Flieger. The hands are Flieger hands. The font, okay, they've modernized them, but you know, you could say it's close enough. The dial design is Flieger. Overall, very nice dial. Now, another major upgrade compared to the automatic Spitfire and the Mark 18 is the loom. In this one, you have all the numerals that are fully loomed. So you have the best loom of all three. So if you were complaining about the Spitfire or the Mark 18, you know, having disappointing loom, which is true, to be honest, it's historically correct, but it's true. This one, you know, will glow like a torch, and it's very comforting to have this big pilot, big watch that gives you a big bright loom at night. Now let's talk about the bracelets, straps and rubber straps options. Because this one comes with different options depending on which dial you go for. So if you go with a black dial, you have the choice of the brown original brown leather strap, or you will be able to put on a rubber strap later on. They will be coming out with a brown and black rubber strap. They haven't come out yet, but IWC told me they are coming out soon. Now if you're going for the blue dial version, then you have the option of putting it on a bracelet. Almost the same bracelet as the Mark 18, so I've talked about it in the other video if you want a more in-depth look at the bracelet, but the advantage of this one is that it tapers as well, so it goes from 21 to I think 18, so it wears very well, and I think they've done that because the watch head is a bit top heavy. I have to say, you know, it's stainless steel, so it's quite top heavy when I was wearing it on the leather strap, and I think with the tapering bracelet, if you have it, you know, tight enough, then it will give you a much better wearing experience. And for the blue one, you also have the option of the blue leather strap and also a blue rubber strap, which has already come out. So looking at the different options here, because you know me, I like bracelets, but I also said that I would like to go with a black dial if I were to go for a Big Pilot 43. So I said, how come there is no brushed bracelet option for the black dial version? And they told me it's because IWC takes the stance that if you go for the black dial, you're going for the authentic Flieger pilot look, and this one should be worn on the brown leather strap, so there is no bracelet option. So you can get the bracelet from the blue dial version as an option. You can buy it separately. It's not possible to buy it yet, but they said very soon you'll be able to buy it separately. However, the one for the blue dial version, just like for the Mark 18, has polished center links. So this is kind of a bummer for me, because I told them, well, it doesn't match, right? If you're getting the black one, which is all brushed, and which is not blingy at all, and then you put it on this bracelet that has polished center links, there's a mismatch of looks here. And there was another female sales associate who nodded and said, yeah, it's true, actually it doesn't match. So I think if you're gonna go black, then your options are limited. You either go with a brown leather strap, or you could put it on the blue one, but the one that goes with it is the brown one, or you could go with a rubber strap that will come out later. If you go with the blue one now, with the blue dial version, then you have the option of the bracelet with these polished center links. And again, I feel like you have the same kind of feel that you had with the Mark 18 Le Petit Prince. It gives it this whole dressier kind of feel, blingier, shinier, whatever you want to call it. And to me, that doesn't work with Big Pilot 43. I mean, this is not supposed to be a dressy watch. It's a big watch that has a lot of presence on your wrist, and I don't think you want to accentuate that or exaggerate that by making it even blingier. If anything, I think you want to tone it down. So a little bit disappointed by that bracelet. If they can make it with polished center links, I don't know why they cannot make it all brushed. I mean, of course they can, but they refuse to. Now you also have the rubber strap for the blue one. You can put on the blue rubber strap. So the rubber strap, to me, that's I don't want to call it a failure, but I think it doesn't really look good. It's not really good. It's not nice. I've seen much better rubber straps. Go watch the video also from Watch Advisor. He also has the same opinion that the rubber straps are not very nice, and I think it just doesn't work. They want to make it look like a leather strap, but in rubber. I think they should have gone for a completely different design, or not offer rubber at all, because I don't see why you would wear Pilot watch on rubber. I think it's because it's 100-meter water resistance, and so they want to offer an option that you can take underwater, but I don't think this is the best option. So for me, you know, I think if I had to go with black dial, I would have to go with a leather strap, and if you go with the blue dial, then you can go with the bracelet or the leather strap. Now, another significant advantage of the Big Pilot 43 is the new ease exchange system that they're offering on their bracelets and straps, whereby you can swap them within a few seconds just by pressing a button on the underside of the strap or the bracelet. And I think that's great, because that's becoming more and more common within the luxury space and even high horology. I mean, you even have Vacheron Constantin offering this system with the overseas, and then you find it on Cartier, obviously. So, you know, this is shared within the Richemont brands, and I think that's great. So you can, you know, get the watch on a couple of straps or bracelets and really change the look, or kind of dress it up or dress it down, depending on what that means to you. I just wish they just made that all brushed bracelets, and that would be great. Now let's talk about the movement, and let's do a mini version of the good, the bad and the ugly here. A few people in the comments have asked me to do more of that, so let's do a mini version of that just for the movement. So the good is that this new movement, the 82-100, is an entirely in-house movement built by IWC in their manufacture. And that's great, because that's a very good movement. This one offers the Peloton system, you know, that was invented and patented by IWC in 1950. This is built with actually ceramic parts, and you know, the ability to make tiny little ceramic parts. IWC has to be commended for the engineering here. It has other ceramic parts like the one in the Spitfire with the escape wheel, and then the pallet fork that are built in ceramic. Also, it has skeletonized bridges, so that you can actually see the movement in a lot more details, and it gives it a lot more depth. And I think this is the first movement from IWC that gives that skeletonized bridge look, that you can really take a good look at it. Now, if we talk about you know, the bad or the not so good, a few things. First of all, they call it a manufacturer movement built entirely by IWC, blah, blah, blah. So again, I'm going to be nitpicky here, but we have to be careful what we mean by in-house. Now, I challenged the sales associate and I told him, you know, I read in places, and I've seen videos, actually it was from Federico Talk Watches, who mentioned that the base architecture and the base plate of the 82 or the 8000 series actually of movement for IWC, and therefore also the 82-100, is based on a 7750 Valjoux. And they built everything in-house on top of that. So you could say, you know, it's 95 or 99% in-house, but the base architecture is from a 7750. So, you know, now it's up to you to decide whether you think this is in-house or not, because you're taking the design architecture from a different movement and then you're building your own on top. So I asked, you know, the staff about that, and at first he was telling me, you know, giving me the IWC talk like, oh, you know, it is entirely built in-house by IWC. I said, yeah, I get that, but this is not the point. The architecture is taken from the 7750. So in the end, yes, he agreed. He said it's true. You cannot see it anyway because of the Peloton system. You know, it obscures the base plate anyway. You cannot see. But he agreed that it is based on the 7750. However, you know, he told me, well, you know, even your Rolex is based on ETA movement. I don't know about that. I don't know enough about this. So if any one of you know in the comments, you can tell me. I didn't want to challenge him because I'm not sure, but I was a little bit surprised though. I'm not sure that Rolex 3135 is based on ETA. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. I want to say though that if you take a brand like Habring from Austria, an independent, who also manufactures movement in-house based on 7750 base plates, even though he also changes probably 99% of them, and he builds a movement that has nothing to do with the 7750, and he actually builds his own parts. And if you look at them, I've tried one on, it looks nothing like 7750, but still he will mention that he makes 7750 modified movement, and he still mentions it. So a lot more honesty there compared to IWC, who claim that this is entirely in-house. So you know, we'll leave it at that. Another thing is that the power reserve is only 60 hours. So, you know, when I talked about the automatic Spitfire, I mentioned, you know, how come that one is 72-hour power reserve, and then the 100, which is entirely, you know, in-house and which is a higher level manufacture movement, how come they can only do 60 hours? And, you know, I mentioned that the sales associate was telling me, well, you know, it's a different architecture, it's different. So, again, you know, I wish that they would have included at least maybe 72, probably 100. If you look at the Big Pilot 46, it has 168 hours of power reserve. So it would have been nice to see something, you know, in between, maybe around 100 hours, but, you know, we get 60. And finally, the ugly is that this movement is not anti-magnetic. I repeat, it is not anti-magnetic, which makes no sense for a pilot's watch. One of the requirements, one of the mandatory basic requirement of a pilot watch is that it has to be anti-magnetic. The automatic Spitfire is anti-magnetic, the Mark 18 is anti-magnetic, and this one is not anti-magnetic. So I asked the sales associate, you know, I don't see on the website that it is anti-magnetic, and because it is a see-through case back, and also because I know IWC is not using silicone hairspring, how do they make this movement anti-magnetic? And then he told me, well, IWC does not market this watch as being anti-magnetic. So yes, there are some parts that are anti-magnetics, all the ceramic parts, like I mentioned before, from the Peloton winding system or the escape wheel and pallet fork, and possibly some other parts are anti-magnetic, but the most important part is the hairspring, and this one is not. So the watch is not anti-magnetic. So it's up to you to decide whether you know, are you wearing a lie then? Are you wearing a pilot's watch that is not anti-magnetic? Now, I read in some forums, some people mentioned that it had kind of a half soft iron cage below the dial and then around the side, but just not on the case back, because you have a see-through case back. I thought that's kind of weird because it doesn't make sense. So I went back actually to the IWC boutique and asked the same guy, you know, do you know anything about that? And he told me, no, that is not true. From the training that they have from IWC, there is no half cage. He also agreed with me that this wouldn't make sense anyway, because when you're up in the air, it's not because it's resting on your wrist that somehow it would stop, you know, magnetism. So it is just not anti-magnetic. Now, why is IWC not using silicone hairspring then? Well, because Richmond does not have access to silicone hairspring. This is a technology that was developed by, you know, Rolex Tudor Group, Patek Philippe, Swatch Group, and then Ulysse Nardin. In conjunction together, they developed this technology and they share the patents. So the patents are expiring in 2023. So possibly, you know, soon after that, 2024, maybe 2025, you're going to see a lot more brands using silicone hairspring. So I'm sure that point, Richmond will have access to them, and then we'll probably make anti-magnetic movement. But for now, we don't have anti-magnetism in the Big Pilot 43. So in conclusion, my verdict by the IWC Big Pilot 43, the pluses, the minuses, and maybe what's next for IWC in terms of their pilot collections. So first, the pluses. I have to say I was very impressed by this one. I think it's actually the most exciting of all three, and it's a very cool watch. When you look at the automatic Spitfire, the Mark 18 and the Big Pilot 43, I think this one is actually the most faithful. It has that pilot DNA, it's fully Flieger, it has no date, it has the best lume, it has that big crown, it has the easy exchange system, it's still pretty wearable even for my smallish wrist. So all the things actually I love, and that made me reconsider that this watch actually should be in the running. Now if we look at maybe the minuses, yet it's still a big and heavy and thick watch, so it might not be a daily wearer in the end. Also the fact that it is not anti-magnetic, and I think, you know, this doesn't make sense as a pilot watch, and it's also the most expensive of all three. I mean, I could look at it this way, that it's still cheaper than the Glashütte original, but it's still quite a bit more money than the Spitfire of the Mark 18. Now if we look at you know, what's in store for this one in the future, or the collection as a whole, I went to the boutique twice and I talked to the sales staff, you know, for a long time, for about maybe 2 hours. So I tried to get some you know, nuggets of information of what's next. When I was complaining that the Big Pilot 43 is quite actually top heavy, especially if it's not on the bracelet, and I said, you know, are they gonna make a titanium version of this one? So he confirmed to me that yes, there is actually a titanium version that is coming. So it's under embargo now, so he can show it to me, I can talk about it, but he told me that probably Q1, the first quarter of 2022, there is a titanium version coming, so it's gonna be lighter. However, he told me do not expect the same dials as the black or blue of the standard versions. It's gonna be, he just gave me some hints. He said maybe it's gonna be like a Top Gun dial, maybe it's gonna be a grayish dial, or more modern dial. So I don't know what it's gonna be, but there's gonna be a titanium version. So that would be great because it would be lighter. Also in terms of, I mentioned this earlier, the blue dial is not a Le Petit Prince. So he told me the Le Petit Prince series is discontinued within the regular standard version. So for example, this blue version is not considered a Le Petit Prince. It's just a blue dial version. Le Petit Prince is going to be limited to special complications. So it's still going to be watches from the Big Pilot 46 or 43 or Spitfire, etc. But they're going to be the ones, he told me there's going to be a tourbillon, there's going to be a mono-pusher chronograph, or there's going to be, of course, a perpetual calendar. So only those, you know, special and much higher end complications will be in blue dial and will be labeled Le Petit Prince. But the regular standard versions, like a three-hander in blue, will not be Le Petit Prince. And another nugget of information that he shared is that they might actually discontinue the Mark series. And the Mark 18 may be the last one. There will not be a Mark 19. That's because he told me they are actually, you know, restructuring their pilot collections. I mentioned earlier in the first video that it's quite messy and there are so many different models. So it seems like the classic pilot collection would be for the Big Pilot 46 and the Big Pilot 43 and maybe the pilot chronograph. And then you will have the Spitfire, and then you will have the Top Gun, and then you will have the Le Petit Prince for the special complications. But the Mark 18, this might actually be the last one. That's because I asked I said, what about the Mark 19? Is it going to have the in-house 32110 in it? Because if it does, then I might as well just wait for that one. And he said, well, you might be waiting for a long time, because I said, if you ask me, this might be the last one. So something to think about. So, you know, thank you very much for watching all 3 installments with me. At the end of the day, just like for Glashütte, I like the big one, but I should go for the small one. You know, the manager told me, if you're looking for a daily driver, you should go for the automatic Spitfire first because it's a better daily wearer. But he said if you do that, I'm 100% sure that you will come back for the Big Pilot 43 later. And then he said if you actually can only buy one, then you should go for the Big Pilot 43. Because if you only have one IWC pilot, it should be a big pilot. So I'm in this conundrum here. Do I get Spitfire and then maybe the Pilot 43, or do I just go for the 43 but then it's not a daily wearer? So yeah, until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to ask yourself what makes you tick, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.